Hello, my wonderful friends. It's so nice to be here with you. And so this is a video response to Terry O'Terry's question. She asked, what do you mean by expansionist thinking? And so I know the lighting's not that great here, so it's outdoor light, so you're going to see a little bit of a shadow, so I apologize in advance. And what it is with expansionist thinking as far as relating it to materialism and minimalism, and thank you for your comments, and those of you that are watching this. Um, it's a great question. What it is the expansionist thinking, in my view, is the idea that instead of minimalism, you see, you're using your thinking in some way. Whether you're using it on material thinking, or a material manifestation, or your thought process, or whatever it is. The challenge is, so people that shed and let go of things, they're using their thinking in a new way. What is it? What's the reason for letting go of those physical things? What did the physical items represent in the first place? So if, and you were hitting on this in one of your comments, and you said you spoke to other people that agree with this, Terry, that the idea that if you let go of some things and then you still have other things that you're working on and you haven't resolved those things, then even if you don't have those things, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be happier. It's almost like we have to say to ourselves, oh, if I have 5 items or 100 items, then I'm going to be happy. Or you're creating that condition. If you believe that by having fewer things I'll be happier, then that's great. As I told you before, having traveled and taught and studied and just as a tourist, and then with my family, with my parents, my brothers, and step family even, and step brothers. What's interesting is when you there's situations where you don't have to have a lot, yes. And if that works for you, that's great. But when people acquire things and they buy all these material things, they're sold in that idea of consumerism, right? I think a lot of people agree that people buy more than they need. I shared a link, and I'll put it again in the video notes, that you can have, Nova has a really good DVD on this, The World in Balance, This Material World. And it shows how we're taught to believe we need certain things to be happy. And I think there's nobody that's disagreeing with you don't need a lot of things to be happy as long as you have the basics. The problem is when you have just the basics. Can you self-actualize on the basics? Yes. I've lived with families in different countries, host families, and done different things. Yes, they have a roof over their heads. They have the families. They're never short on laughter. They love their families. They define success like that. What I'm saying from expansionist thinking is, from that standpoint, is if you're not acquiring material things, where's that thinking going? How are you using it to expand the quality of your life and the lives of others? That's what I'm saying. Is that making sense? So in other words, if we accept that I'm not using that thinking for material acquisition, where's it going? So then this brings up a really interesting question. We love what we're doing, right? And we want to continue what we're doing into our old age. I would love to continue teaching until I'm 90, 100, or dead, whatever it is, 150, 160. And I teach online. So, and I don't want to stop doing that. However, by having a financial nest egg and not spending money on material items, you allow yourself to get to a financial position, maybe faster, maybe not, but it's a little faster if you're not spending your money on certain things. And you can use that money and invest it instead. See, so the question is, what do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to go? What sorts of creature comforts do I want to have as I'm going along for the ride? I talked to my dad about this, and my dad and my stepmom are shedding a lot of things. So they donated a lot of things, and my dad said to me, he says, Sanjay, I've donated so much stuff that I could have retired on what I donated. So he says, the one thing I'm going to tell you is that don't necessarily build up too much. His life experiences at a stage where, he's closing in on retirement age, but again, he loves what he does. He's a physician. He's not going to quit. And you don't do what you do for money, all right? If you get paid, that's great. If you don't, I was tutoring before I started teaching. So, you don't do what you do for the money. It does help, okay, that you get paid and you can have a lifestyle, so you don't take that for granted. that you can have a roof over your head and food and these kinds of things, that you can take care of your needs. The thing you start realizing is, oh, if I invest and I'm smart with my money or I do things, then what I can do is I don't have to spend the money on the material items, excess material items, because that can keep me from investing and using that money in other ways. But as you noted in your comment, and you realize this, if somebody's very wealthy, it's a drop in the bucket for them. It doesn't mean that they're being wasteful. If you have the money and you are living in relation to that money in a way that allows you to pay yourself first, you're investing 10-20% off the top, they say even, then you're doing whatever you need to be doing. And then whatever you do with your money, whether you spend it on material items, experiences, whatever, it's not necessarily getting wasted. The question becomes, do you want to do more with the investing or more with the experiences and less with the material items? Something's happening with your money. Am I making sense? Something's happening with your money. Something is going on with that thinking. What are you doing now that you don't have the material items, or you're not putting your attention into that? And one thing my dad mentioned, it was pretty important. He said, a lot of people buy collections. He says, Sanjay, I know you like buying little trinkets and things. You can have collections, pottery or something, and if that's your hobby or your vice, go for it. Go for it. You don't want to let people tell you what to have or not have. If something you own brings you joy, like this statue behind me, I love it. All right? Do I need it? No. But I love it. I love looking at it in the morning as the sun's coming up. So you can just quickly see that the sun's coming up. So I love where I live. Okay? I love this kind of lake view. I love my setup. And I love having a statue that's staring at me. Now you might say, well, you don't need it. I don't need it. And it'll be just a bare wall behind me. Now the question is, did I go broke buying that behind me? And the answer is no. You never want to put yourself into a situation where you're desperate for cash and that you're selling off everything and then you're trying to raise money from that. And there are people that do that. The material things should be an outflow of your state of consciousness, but they're not where your total value lies at all. You know that you can be separated from your material things at any time. So it's kind of like, what for you works, what do you need, as you mentioned in your comments, just like we're talking about back and forth, that there's all the people, there's even a video blog that somebody says, burn everything that you own, right? Well, the only problem is she's using the computer to record this, to put it on YouTube. Nobody's telling her to burn her computer, she's wearing clothes, right? And I haven't watched the clip yet, to be fair, and I'm going to watch it, but I loved it. I said, wait a minute, she has clothes, she has her computer, she's not burning all of her possessions, right? So it's kind of like, I don't think anybody has the right answer for you. And like you said, you have to think what you want, and then you go from that. And that's basically that thinking. If you're not using it for materialism, you're using it for something else. What are you using it for? Investing, great. Are you using it for experiences? Great. If you're using it for furthering your education, bettering, if you have kids, are you spending it on your kids and making sure their health and well-being or whatever, or your insurance or whatever, everything's in place? Great. See, it's that leftover. If you're spending your leftover cash on something and you've already invested, you've done things, is that making sense? Then what happens is, at that point, you start realizing, and my battery's going to get cut off here, so you got to forgive me. So at that point, you start realizing, okay, how much more do I need to be comfortable? What do I really need? Okay, what is it really about? And the answer is that you know for yourself. And at different points, I'll tell you something, it's going to change. Your material needs are going to change at different points. Okay, what you feel you need material at one moment will be different from the next. If you have a child, it's going to be about the child. If you have, like me, 4 dogs, I have 4 dogs, so I have all these dogs running around the house, it's going to be about buying the materials for them. So it isn't as if, it's just amazing to me to say, well, you can live with 100 items and that can be the rest of your life, right? I'm going to just have 100 items and then nothing else is going to change in my life. That's fine. You can, but you're creating that rule. You're creating that rule. When I get down to 100 items, I'm going to be happy. But remember, the thinking that's getting you there, what are you going to do with it? Okay, now I have 100 items. What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my thinking? Am I still creating value? And I'm sure a lot of these people are creating value in other ways, experiences, relationships, Maybe, and some people, income's not important. It's not important to invest and get ahead and do things. What I am saying is, if you can invest and have multiple streams of income and get to a situation to where money's not an issue, it frees you up creatively. You can do whatever the heck you want at any time. And so I have friends like this. I had a friend that I spoke to several years ago that he's a millionaire, and he basically lives a very simple life. Like, you wouldn't even know it. Like, he just has no car. He lives with his parents. He flies overseas, flies back to Florida. He lives in Florida. And he's a smart guy, a genius. And he believes in no possessions, basically nothing. One day he had all his possessions in his automobile at his office. Somebody had gone to his car, and they took his sweaters, they took a lot of his clothes. He had a lot of summer clothes, but I think he had a few winter clothes for when he was overseas. But they wiped him out. They wiped him out. But the point I'm making is, he realized he didn't need a lot. So he started giving a lot of stuff anyway away. He sold his condo, but he invested. And his big excitement comes with investing and seeing his net worth grow. It'd be great to be in a situation like that, right? To have, we want to be in situations that are stable. But I've realized, I've talked to so many people, and everyone has a different definition about what they need to be content materially or financially or whatever, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. And what I can tell you is, there's another guy I want to share. I used to be friends with the guy that was into real estate, and he was never happy. As far as I was trying to tell him, wow, and he had a personal training business, and he was doing well. I said, well, you're doing well. He took some chances. Some things didn't work out real estate wise, but he had a visionary type of thinking. But the problem is, he was not happy. And so I said to him, I said, wow, so do you recognize what you've done already? He says, yes, but it's not good enough. And there's this problem you might have heard, like, and Wayne Dyer talks about this, right? The counseling psychologist and motivational speaker. I've met a couple of times, and I mentioned that. He's very world famous. Everybody loves him. One of the things he talks about is, are you striving and not arriving? You know what I mean? And it's a red flag if people are constantly going to the next thing. And like you said, materially, am I buying something else to feel happy? Or do I need something else, then I'll feel this? And the problem is, what are you escaping? What are you avoiding? What's deep down inside that needs to be brought out and recognized? Because if you realize that, wow, like with that friend with the real estate and the personal training business, the guy wasn't happy. No matter what success, I doubt if he had $1 million mansion he'd be happy, and filled with material things. And what you said about the very wealthy people being content, being happy, the material success that they're displaying is a reflection of their happiness. This is the idea. If you realize that your materialism, everything around you, everything through you, everything that your thoughts, feelings, and behavior are your state of consciousness. It's all tied into how you are at that level. When you change anything in your environment, your material items, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, spiritual or physical well-being, other things are going to change. It's all interlinked. So that's basically it. I know I said a lot here, but the summary is basically that your expansionist thinking is still what drove you to build your material acquisitions. It can be used to develop your experiences, your relationships. It's just that you're not using it for the material items. Now you're using it for something else. Does it mean you're never going to buy material items again? No. You don't know. You might need new underwear, or you might need a t-shirt or something. You might need socks or a new clothes. Maybe your shirt gets torn and you need something. And the point is to say that I'm only going to have 100 items and never need anything else again in my life. And they know that too. A lot of these minimalists, they know that, you need to buy disposable items. You need to, unless you never want to brush your teeth, you're going to need toothpaste, or you're going to need certain things that keep you going, or you're going to need to buy a shaving kit, or whatever it is that you need, makeup or whatever. The point is, how simple do we want to go with this? And when we're going simple, what do we want to do with, what do we want to do with our thinking? Okay, so if I'm going simple, I'm not owning a lot, what do I do with my expansionist thinking now that it's not being used for material acquisition? There's one thing I told my dad. I said, Dad, it's amazing what you've accomplished. And I told him, I said, you're giving all this stuff away, but you're benefiting all these churches. He's very generous. He used to give of his time as a physician too. Once a week, he gave free vaccines. And what I really love about that is he recognizes that even though it hurts that he bought a lot of excess that he didn't need and ended up giving it away, he also realized that he's feeling lighter in his certain stage in life, that you don't need it. But I said, Dad, you also had the thinking that helped you to buy all that and create all that for yourself. And now you're giving it to all these other people. They're benefiting from it. So I don't think that it's ever a waste anyway if you give it to a good cause. But what are you going to do with that thinking now? And your thinking is always used in other ways anyway, whether you're aware of it or not. So it's like, how do I intentionally create whatever it is that I want in my life? And that's what's exciting. And I will say more in another video blog about related topics. But that's the sum of it. Your expansionist thinking is still with you, whether or not you have material items or not. It's going to need to be used, okay, whether you have any objects or not. And you just basically create the life that you want based on your thinking. And you decide, and nobody else, not me, not anyone else, you decide what's the right material balance for you. And also, please check out that link, the Nova Imbalance of Material World, and do the cross-cultural comparisons. There are other countries, they live on far less, they have a few items, and they're totally content. Sure, they have different salary scales. The income levels are different based on first world, second world, third world. And they have a totally different relative kind of mindset around what we're even talking about. So just look at that. Also look at what they're doing with their time when they're not. Read the articles and then see the DVD there. A lot of them don't have a lot of material things, so what do they do with their time instead? You know what I mean? What is their view on life? Also look at the lifestyle design, as we were talking earlier, about the idea of how do I want to live my life? What's necessary for my life to feel that I'm doing everything I want to be doing? You know what I mean? Or being the kind of person I want to be, doing the things I need to be doing, or having what I need. What will help me to bring the greatest expression for the highest good of myself and others? And that's what's exciting, because when you get those things kind of in place, you've kind of figured out what's the right balance, material versus non-material. At this moment, what do I want to be doing with my time? With whom do I want to be? Which environment? You get all these questions kind of answered, and they all come together. They all gel. And so, Terry, I want to thank you. I know that was a very... I have a tendency to be very chatty, but I tried to answer your question in a very roundabout way and then direct way at the same time. Hope that helps, and look forward to some more thoughts from you, and I'll post some more videos. Thanks. Have a great day.